Sisi tuko tayari.
Subiri bwana, mambo bado.
The countdown to the August 9th, 2022 general election is officially on.
I would be the most stupid fellow on the earth to go and support the third time.
Nia yangu ni kuhakikisha ya kwamba wale ambao wataendelea hawatakuwa watu ya kunyanyasa na kuibia wananchi.
Who will succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta?
Mimi siwezi kurudi nyuma.
We separate fact from fiction, truth from half-truth, and outright fabrications. Because as you know, choices have consequences.
If you did this and you say bottoms up, this is the bottom.
Watu wamechanganyikiwa vibaya sana na hii bottom up.
Kiona sisi tukikuwa na ndugu zetu, ndio safari ya mabadiliko.
KTN News brings you Kivumbi 2022. Every Monday from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. for our 360-degree election coverage.
This is KTN News.
Welcome back. You're watching Inside Politics. Thanks for staying with us. During the first quarter of the show, we've just discussed about the gloves being off between the president and the deputy, with the president mentioning you can't have your cake and eat it too, but the deputy president sticking to his guns, mentioning I am here to stay. We joined by choice and we shall leave by choice. Mark Bichachi, right before the break, a lot of sentiments were put on the table. Perhaps add your voice to this before we shift focus to security matters.
Let me tell you, my friend, the problem we have here is that Tanga is in narrative as much as they Tanga across the country. Let us be clear that number one, the deputy president himself was involved in the handshake. He is a key architect of the handshake. But he comes out of the boardroom and lies to Kenyans that he was not involved. It is the same deputy president who will say the big four projects are dead, and in the next sentence say that UDA, which has existed for all of 2 seconds, is to be credited for all the development we've seen in this country. If you listen to my good friend Dennis there in studio, you'll realize that Tanga is an outfit that uses big words to scare Kenyans, big words like democracy, autocratic presidency, and things like that, forgetting that the person who's breaking the fundamental principles of leadership, integrity, and character is the person of the deputy president, who comes out of a government sitting, of a ministerial sitting, to turn around and say that that particular cabinet is not doing anything. This is the most duplicitous kind of talking and thinking that is going to ruin our country. And let's not talk about dictatorship here. If President Uhuru was a dictator, then the person of William Samoei Arap Ruto will probably be rotting in jail somewhere. The fact that he's very free to perambulate across Kenya, make very fake 15 billion shilling claims without consequence, almost bring down a bank by saying so, harbor a terrorist, a suspected terrorist within his purview, and then we want to sit here and pretend that the kind of deputy president we need is one who at every chance will stick a knife in the president's back? Really? If that same DP became president, is that the kind of deputy he would want? And let us stop lying to Kenyans that he's being mistreated. If living in Karen under a peace security and having every bill of yours being paid, and then you do no work and you claim you do no work and you proudly say so, if that is what is called torture, please sign me up. I would love to be in his position. Please torture me like that any day. But let's stop being two-faced. Let's stop being duplicitous. Let's stop trying to have our cake and eat it too, and lying to the Kenyan people bold-faced.
So, Rosaline, as you're covering this particular fallout, it's been a long time coming, and right now we've seen the president go all out and just call out his deputy, but the deputy is definitely taking the high road and sticking to his guns. Make sense of this.
Jesse, I think it was just too long before the president actually made this pronouncement. Because if you have looked at the previous years, there are some pronouncements that the president has made that indicated that things were not well with the two. Remember, it is a president who came up with the comment Tanga Tanga. He also talked about not leaving government to thieves. And he talked about corruption, and he talked about leaving this country in safe hands. He also talked about that this government is not about leadership between two communities, but we have more than two communities. But going to the latest pronouncement by the president, you've heard his allies and the other people saying that as the president moves west, his deputy goes east. Yet, when they were elected in 2017, they had an agenda with Kenyans, which one was the Big Four agenda. Now, when the president came into the handshake in March 9th, 2018, at a time that the country was going to the dogs, because you remember the NASA team were leading the team of the racist, and they could not move forward. And we even had the mock swearing in of Raila as the people's president. He said the essence of that was to unite the country. And after the handshake, they agreed on the 9-point agenda, which the president said, this is what I'm committed to. But remember the subsequent communication, the president released the executive order, which now made Matiang'i the coordinator of the national government projects and programs. And during that time, you remember there was the issue that the role of the deputy president had been taken away and had been domiciled in Matiang'i's docket. But if you look at the structure of the national interior and national coordination, I think actually those roles fall into that docket. But you have heard the deputy president saying he had never failed the president in any assignment he has been given. Yeah. But now the common man asks one question, that the deputy president who sits at the current residence, which is a government building, has been hosting delegations after delegations. And during the meetings with these delegations, he's talked about his candidature, the bottom-up approach, how to empower the youth and the others. Now, if you look at this and you look at the president, then you look at them speaking different narratives. And this is why the president has been talking that as much as I expected my government to deliver my legacy projects, I am seeing that we are not in tandem with my deputy. Okay. And that is why the day he told the deputy to resign, he said you cannot speak with the two sides of the mouth. You cannot say the government is doing good and you support what the government is doing, but when the government errs, you say that is not part of my government. So that is what he said. In mature democracies, when you are not when you are dissatisfied with what the government does, you take the honorable thing and resign, and then you can critique from outside. But again, if you look at our constitution and the old constitution, with this one, the president and the deputy president are tied in the hip. So it means that it is only him from his conscience, then he can look and say, I need to resign. If that route is not possible, then the other route is now taking him to parliament. But again, if the impeachment flops, okay, it exposes the president.
Okay, so it's a catch-22 scenario. Let's see how it plays out. Gentlemen, let's shift focus right now to the center of attention in terms of security. And in the past week, the government withdrew the General Service Unit officers guarding the official residence of the Deputy President, William Ruto, at his Karen, Eldoret and Sugoi homes, and replaced them with officers from the administration police. The officers were replaced without the knowledge of the Deputy President, forcing his spokesman, David Mugonyi, to cry foul over the move. The changes came 2 days after President Kenyatta challenged his deputy to resign if he was dissatisfied with the government he is serving. Take a look at this story done by Elvis Koskei.
Thursday afternoon at the official residence of the Deputy President William Ruto in Karen, and there is a change of guard taking place. Exit officers from the elite General Service Unit and enter officers from the administration police. According to the new orders from the National Police Service, the official residence will now be manned by officers from administration police. This was also replicated at Ruto's Nairobi home in Karen, Eldoret, as well as his Sugoi home in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County. And this move caught many unawares, coming only a day after President Uhuru Kenyatta dared his deputy to resign from office.
In fact, the deputy president does not need those light or beefed up security. His security is with the people and God Almighty. And we are praying for him. We are praying for this nation. I know there will be more frustration.
Having security is not a favor that you give to the deputy president to give him security. It's a right, yeah? And it is Kenyans who actually put him there as the deputy president. So I think those overzealous people, and the IG actually also will have to answer to that, who are now trying to frustrate the deputy president by removing security, will know that it is counterproductive. It is working actually against their intentions.
He holds it in trust for the people of Kenya. And we should not forget that the deputy president was elected as a ticket, because we would not expect them to be withdrawing the security of the head of state. They cannot also be withdrawing the security of the deputy president.
But according to a statement by the National Police Service, this was just a normal reassignment of duties within the service to enhance efficiency and effectiveness. A statement signed by the National Police Service spokesman, Bruno Shioso, says the Presidential Escort Unit will continue to provide close protection security to the Deputy President.
Kama mutake kuchunga William, mutuambie sisi tukuje hapa kuanzia kesho ama kuanzia saa hii mpaka 2022.
Tuambie kama raia, kwa sababu sisi raia tujui ya kwamba amefanya makosa gani. Kwa sababu kama kuna mwenye amefanya makosa, tuambie vizuri ya kwamba amefanya makosa hii na hii na hii. Hakuna haja kuzungusha huyu mwanaume saa yote.
Sasa hivi wenye security wametoka, hatujui tutaenda wapi mboga. Sisi watu ya Sugoi tumezoea kwenda kwa deputy president. Leo tumekuja mpaka hapo, nataka kwenda kununua mboga, nikaambiwa ID. Nikajiuliza ID, kwani shida iko wapi kwa ID? ID ati tumebadilishiwa security. Security kiaje na tuko nyumbani?
However, according to the deputy president, through his communication director David Mgonyi, the move amounts to infringing on the rights and security of the deputy president, as well as undermining the second in command. The office of the DP has already written to the Inspector General of Police seeking an explanation on this matter and reasons for the breach of security. The changes are bound to escalate the already polarized political situation. Elvis Kosgei, KTN News, Uasin Gishu County.
Okay, so that's the latest. Politicians reading politics in that move, others saying it's counterproductive. The IG of police saying that change was just normal when it comes to protecting VIP officers. But we'll definitely try and look at what the DP as well mentioned through his communications secretary, who termed it as the latest installment in a sustained effort to undermine the DP's personal security in pursuit of political vendetta. So Nthumbi, is there respect of the office of the deputy president?
You know, people don't understand that they're transient. One day they will cease to exist. You know, when you act as though you're eternal and everlasting, one day you're not going to exist. One day that fleeting power that you're exercising unfairly upon Kenyans or a Kenyan, it will no longer be a privilege that you hold.
So you read malice in this move, yeah?
There's absolutely malice, disdain. Kenyans who have exalted themselves to the place of God. Kenyans who think that they own this country as part of their own. Is absolutely, you know, it's a terrible display and abuse of values in this country for us, and it's so petty. So what the next thing they're going to do is switch off water that he doesn't shower or he doesn't drink, or what are they going to do at the end of the day? What are you going to take away from him that is constitutional? You know, but I want to disabuse a point before I speak about this security aspect, and I'll speak as a security expert at the end of the day. You know, we have to ask ourselves certain questions. That the deputy president is being accused as though he is the one who has failed the government. Well, let's ask ourselves, the economy that is extremely bad between the president and the deputy president, who you blame? The terrible and disastrous handling of COVID at the end of the day, and even the corruption there, who is to blame? the fall, the degradation, and the death of Jubilee, who are you going to blame between the president and his deputy at the end of the day?
Okay.
The suspension of democracy in this country, who are you going to blame at the end of the day? So, the ruling of BBI, you understand, the death of it, the wastage of 4 years, and the resources that have been given to the leisure and privilege of Raila Odinga, who are you going to, to blame at the end of the day?
All right.
We have to refer ourselves to Section 6. Chapter 6 of our Constitution that speaks of leadership with integrity, and place that squarely on the door and the table of the President of the Republic of Kenya, and we say you're answerable for certain things in this country. Stop using your deputy as a scapegoat. The only thing that your deputy desires is presidency after you. So why are you behaving as though you're subject to electoral defeat? Are you in the ballot next year? Do you want to compete with him and be the president again after that? We are sort of confused. But let me confine myself to the issues of security.
Back home here.
The law NPS Act is fundamental on certain things. The first thing that it did is that it absorbed, it did an analysis, a risk analysis, and classified all presidential infrastructure as critical infrastructure, away from the rest that SGBU, the AP unit, establishes and looks after. And then the Act established the presidential escort team within the GSU. The Act also mandated, and you can look at chapter 24 of the NPS Act, whatever it is that there is, there's a Section 8, you know, there are various laws. The entire Police Act says that. And also, it mandated that the leader of GSU is the one who is mandated to look after two distinct offices that are the ballot adjointed. Provide security for the office of the president, provide security for the office of the vice president. It is written. So when you're planning for the security of the president, what it is that we call concept of operations is different, because the risk of the president and the risk of the deputy president are differently, are different at the end of the day.
All right.
So offices were established constitutionally. The liability is upon, the commandant of GSU at the end of the day. You understand? So when you bring a peace, the training is different. The deployment is unconstitutional at the end of the day. They don't have constitutional mandate to guard critical infrastructure within the presidency at the end of the day. So you understand? So the action was unlawful. Why? It doesn't sit within the mandates of the Constitution. Also, the National Police Act commands and instructs that police officers are not supposed to respect unlawful instructions. The CS of security, at the end of the day, must be tied to policy matters. You understand? The Inspector General of Police is the administrative officer in charge of all the deliberations. A constitutional office that is protected against politicization.
All right.
So we are saying, number one, that this is petty. And we're telling the deputy president, please, even if they remove and they bring G4S or whatever it is that there is, God Almighty will secure you and Kenyans will. But at the end of the day, let him focus on the agenda that he has. The third liberation in this country, which is the economic liberation of the common man and the 17 million Kenyans who are completely disenfranchised from economic participation.
That's well noted. So, Roslyn, I get a picture right here, and Senator Ledamo Lekina mentioned it. A while back, they were trying to change the security laws in the country to make it impossible for police to be withdrawn just in such a haphazard manner. But back then, things were rosy in Jubilee, and certain clauses were apparently deleted. And right now, I think they know where the shoe pinches. You know, talks on political podiums won't change these laws. Well, what do you read into this?
Jesse, it's wonderful that we are actually getting this from a lawmaker who knows one of their role is to make laws. Now, if you look at what Parliament has done in 2013 up to now, and if you read our Constitution, we had a very beautiful Constitution. And as we mark the 11th year since we passed the 2010 Constitution, there are some bits of the Constitution that Kenyans were given after 2.5 decades that we celebrate. One of them was the recruitment of the Inspector of Police and the deputies. What did Parliament do? Parliament approved amendments to allow the appointing authority to appoint both the IG and the 2 deputies. So we still go back to Parliament. If they had actually stuck by what the Constitution did, remember the first occupant of that office, the former IG, he was competitively recruited. What about the second IG and the third? So now where we are having a crisis, when was the last time you ever had the Inspector General of Police, Hilary Mutyambai, address the public on issues? Then when we start from there, we see from where the problem is. The road starts from the top. Okay. Now, if the Deputy President said there was reorganization of the security, that is his mandate as a state officer. What blocked him from actually reaching out to the Deputy President and explaining, because I've heard leaders talking about withdrawal. It's not withdrawal. It is replacement. So they will have actually explained to the Deputy President that where we sit, we have decided that the administration police officers who have been trained to guard critical government infrastructure are the ones who are going to replace the general service officers who are supposed to protect the VVIPs, which in this case is the Deputy President and the family members. And give the reason, because when it comes to politicizing the security sector, then we are losing it, because this is not something that you can give and take. We pay these people by taxpayers' money. They owe services to the people, and that's why part of the police reforms was to turn a force into a service so that Kenyans can get that service. Now, when we have the Interior Ministry and the IG and the others now using that as a weapon to rein in on people that they think they do not play ball, then I think this is where we lose it. So first, our legislators must trace back, where did we do it wrong? Can we now do it right? So that the people we have are held to account. 2, Nthumi has talked about Chapter 6. Have we really honored Chapter 6? Because when we find public and state officers engaging in politics, then we are losing it. That's why even the Constitution blocked cabinet secretaries from being members of Parliament. There was a reason for that. So that they are not held by any of the politicians to discharge their duties, but the appointing authority to do the work as per the Constitution. We have the Constitution, we have the National Police Act, we have the standing orders. Why don't we follow it the way the law says?
Okay, so Dismas, as a political risk analyst, was this move counterproductive?
Of course, but before I address that, at some stage Dennis had said that if there is impunity, if there's anything wrong in Kenya, the buck stops with President Kenyatta. A point of correction, if there is impunity in Kenya, it's Uhuru Ruto administration. If there's corruption in Kenya, it's Uhuru Ruto. And if there's mediocrity in Kenya, it's Uhuru Ruto. It's a joint ticket.
It's a joint ticket.
There's no way you can have a President Kenyatta taking liability of everything bad, and the deputy taking credit for everything good. So what works for the goose, it's supposed to work for the gander. Now, coming to the issue of the security of the deputy president, in my view, the persons responsible are joking with our national interest, they're joking with our national, or rather our public interest, and they're joking with our national security.
Who's responsible here?
Well, you see, the buck stops with the President of the Republic of Kenya. So when I see people blaming the CS Matiang'i or even the Inspector General of Police, I think they're shooting in the dark. There is no way anybody would convince me today. You cannot convince any rational Kenyan that this security, I don't know whether it was a redeployment, reorganization, rearrangement, was done without the knowledge of President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. The buck stops with him. When the president was sworn in for his second term, he took the Bible and the sword and the Constitution. He said, I'm going to protect Kenyan lives and properties. One of them is of his deputy president. That is a constitutional office. Now, if you threaten or if you compromise the security of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, it can have consequences that a rational person will not even start thinking about. And in my view, if you think for some reason, the way Obala has indicated, that you need maybe these specialized units from AP to guard the government building, which is the current residence, maybe it's not gazetted as a lodge or as a state house, whatever it is, then best practices and decorum demands that somebody actually tells the deputy president, we are going to reorganize this security. that this communication is supposed to come maybe from the head of the public service or even from the president himself. You cannot have, according to the media reports, you cannot have the deputy president waking up in the morning and then he's being given a brief by a junior officer that, good morning, sir, there's a security change. APs are coming in and GSU is going out. It's unacceptable in this democracy. However, to run away from propaganda, again, the AP has indicated that for the close protection, it still remains with the presidential escort unit, and it's only the buildings which have been taken care of the AP. But all said and done, this should have not been a public conversation. It should have not been in the public space. Because, I mean, you may not like the deputy president, probably you don't need to like him, but you need to treat the office with respect, with a bit of decency.
Okay, well noted. Allow us to take a short break on that particular point. We'll be back with this matter and more. Is it setting a dangerous precedent? Who'd want to be the deputy president next if they might go through such scenarios? You know, it begs those questions. Even as we come back, we'll evaluate the move by the Building Bridges Initiative National Secretariat to support the move by the Attorney General to move to the Apex Court in terms of the BBI. Reggae seems to be coming back, at least in the Supreme Court. Stay with us.
This is KTN News.